Welcome to the Oz Digital Consulting podcast, Digital Transformation and Transformation Matters. I'm here with my longtime, very good friend, Vinnie Alonzi. Vinnie, do you want to do a quick introduction to our audience?
Yeah, sure. Again, Paul, thanks for having me.
I'm
Vinnie Alonzi. I'm a financial services technology executive. I've been in the field for many years across both the sell side landscape, the buy side landscape, as well as the vendor landscape.
Fantastic. I mean, Vinnie's here today to really tell us about what he's been experiencing in the world of financial services and the idea of transformation. Especially financial services, I mean, it's a massive field. But first, how did you get here, Vinnie? I mean, I've known you for many years, my friend. But how do you tell our audience about your career a little bit, and how are you here today on Transformation Matters?
Yeah, it's been, it's a great question because it's kind of been, an interesting journey. When I graduated, undergraduate, I had an electrical engineering degree. And at that point in time, the defense companies were really sucking up anybody that had any sort of engineering background. So my first couple of years out of school, I worked for a number of different defense companies. And then during that period, Wall Street also started to get very curious about more kind of quantitative analytical driven decision processing. So they actively started to recruit engineers and computer scientists, away from the defense companies and into Wall Street. And, it was just a matter of getting a call from a recruiter saying, hey, you want to, potentially give this a try. And I did. I really enjoyed it. I started out on the buy side, which is a little bit of a slower paced environment, but then kind of through networking and having conversations with different individuals, the sell side sounded like something that could potentially be very exciting. So I transitioned over to the sell side and really kind of caught the financial services bug, the real dynamic environment that whole world kind of operated in at that time. A lot less regulation, and for the worst, a lot less kind of diversity and inclusion and things like that, which I'm glad to see has changed over the years. And during that time, again, kind of catching that bug, I decided to kind of go for my MBA. So I did my MBA at night, and then kind of transitioned through a number of different sell side firms, and kind of halfway through my career, there were some conversations that I started to have with some folks on the buy side, that the buy side was actually going to start to look at a more technology-driven sort of environment, and that area was really starting to pick up. And again, the folks on the buy side were looking to handpick people on the sell side to kind of bring that mentality, into their arena. And so that was kind of the evolution of kind of moving through the process.
And Vinnie, when you say, for our listeners, when you say buy, can you define the buy side and the sell side?
Sure. So the buy side is, your investment management companies. They're the companies that, at the high level sell mutual funds, right? So, Fidelities, the Vanguards, those sorts of companies. And they've got, portfolio managers that manage a portfolio of instruments. And we as consumers, buy those and invest in those particular mutual funds. And there's also a high net worth side of that business too, where if you have a certain amount of money, you get, a certain more white glove sort of experience when you work in that domain. When we talk about the sell side of the business, so when those portfolio managers need to buy or sell stocks or bonds or derivatives or whatever they're trading within their portfolios, they actually go to the sell side to do those transactions. So the folks on the sell side are the ones that are making the markets for them, and they're the ones that are, trying to pick up, profit between the bid and offer spreads that they offer, the particular instruments to the buy side.
And in this mechanism between buy and sell in your academic career and your journey in financial services, when you first started out to where you are today, what would you say is some of the biggest transition that you'd say? If you close your eyes and went back into a time capsule and young Vinnie out of getting your MBA sitting in the world of finance, and you looked around and then you journey to today, like what is like some of the biggest transformations you've seen?
I think without a doubt, it's technology, right? Like I mentioned, when I first moved to Wall Street on the buy side, and also an interesting side note, when I kind of go through my career, most of the firms that I work for aren't here anymore, which is,
Really?
which is kind of an interesting look back, right? When
Okay,
I
let
look
me stop
at,
you a second. When you say not here, whether they merged, morphed in, out of business, right? Because there was a lot of merges as things went on.
a tremendous amount of consolidation, right? So I spent, my first endeavor was at Bankers Trust. Now, Bankers Trust is
Sure.
still around, but I'm not exactly sure what their business model is today.
Okay.
Then I moved to Salomon Brothers, right? One of the
Sure.
big powerhouses of
Right.
Wall Street, and spent, and actually had a great time there. I mean, it was really a very interesting time. I was in the group that actually Michael Bloomberg started. So we were building, analytics. We had kind of the predecessor to the Bloomberg terminal that we were delivering internally within Salomon Brothers. So it was a lot of fun. But then the scandal happened. Bloomberg got sucked up by Citibank. And they disappeared. Then I moved over to another primary dealer called Donaldson, Lufkin and Jenrette,
Sure. Well.
DLJ, another great small organization, but a big powerhouse. And I was supporting the government trading desk and the mortgage trading desk at that time. But then they got sucked into Credit Suisse and they kind of disappeared, right?
Wow.
So yeah, it's kind of interesting to look back, but kind of back to your question. I mean, again, it's definitely technology, and it's technology, I think, from multiple angles. Again, when I first kind of joined into the Wall Street family, if you had a price yield calculator, you had an advantage, right?
Okay.
We had to write all those, analytics, which
Sure.
now are free on the internet, right?
Right. But let me
and you
stop
can
you a
do-
second. So for a listening audience, so where are you sitting? Like, are you sitting at this early stage in technology, in data? Where are you sitting when you're starting your career?
In technology.
In technology on the sell side.
On the sell side.
Okay.
Correct. And one of the key advantages back then was not only the technology, but you bring up a great point, was the data. I mean, one of the key advantages that firms had is their intellectual property around the data, right? And early on, that was Salomon Brothers, right? They were able to, be kind of market leaders in bringing in data and scrubbing data, making it reliable and timely to the audience. And you could see that sort of journey is what Michael Bloomberg kept up when he started Bloomberg, right? Because now, Bloomberg is the data source for a large percentage of Wall Street firms, right? And the adage is, it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong as long as it's consistent with Bloomberg, right? So that was one of the key advantages. But again, so the technology, the evolution of technology, the much more kind of rapid development that we could do today in the technology arenas, and the other side of that is the actual, business units. I mean, historically, they were kind of Luddites when it came to technology, right? You delivered an application to them, you told them what keys to hit, and then they were off to the races, right? Today, and look, you and I, are both kind of teaching. We see the technology sophistication that's happening, at a much younger level today, right? I mean, kids in middle school and high school, they're doing Python, they're doing R, they're doing Power Builder, they're doing Tableau. I mean, they're coming out of high school with these skill sets. So, they come into the workforce with this kind of much higher base level of technology expertise, right? Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad, right? In big organizations, we're constantly dealing with this whole shadow IT arena, right? Where, people within the business unit are developing technology that potentially the technology organization is unaware of. That particular individual leaves the firm or moves on, and then all of a sudden, those applications that they built, are not, don't have the security reviews around them, and not quite sure what the data sources are behind them, and things like that. It becomes a little bit more challenging. But all in all, I think that's a much positive thing, because that keeps pushing the technology organization to exceed the expectations that maybe more traditionally weren't set for them.
But in your transformation from when you started your career, Vinny, to where you are now, obviously technology's moved, right, significantly. Data is critical, right? Bloomberg really is sort of the original data scientist of financial services, right? Creating his whole empire.
Correct.
How about the people, right? When you're looking around as young Vinny is looking around in his career, what was the people like and the culture like from where you started to where you are today?
Yeah, that's another great question. I think again it goes back to the understanding of technology. Early days you had to kind of convince either the internal customer or the external customer that technology was going to give you an advantage, right? Sometimes that was clear, sometimes it wasn't clear, sometimes it was understood, sometimes it wasn't understood. I think today, kind of fast forward today, it's ingrained in the personas that we see no matter what industry you're in. I don't think there's any industry that you can point to where folks on either side of the table will argue that, well, I don't think technology is going to help me move my firm forward, right? Everybody sees the alpha generating capabilities that technology can deliver. Some of them understand it more than others do. But I think that's one of the kind of the major differences. I think early on, the firms that understood that excelled, exponentially. I don't think you see that sort of kind of function happen anymore. I think it's a much more linear function as firms start to understand the advantage that technology can deliver to them.
Would you think financial services right now, their key asset is really their data? Or would you say it's the data plus their talent pool that they have?
Yeah, I think that has to be the clear distinction, right? I think every organization, the saying goes, the new gold is data, right? The new oil is data. Now, firms have that data. They have dark data, they have hidden data. They source data externally, which is great, and a lot of firms know how to do it. And there's technology platforms that let you do that today, right? Relatively seamlessly. I think a lot of firms struggle with what to do with that data. A good case in point, when I first came into the industry, which was a long time ago, people wanted a security master, right? A master database that has a list of all the securities in the marketplace with all the attributes associated with them, with what I need to manage my portfolios or what I need to kind of trade in the marketplace. Fast forward to today, that is still a challenge for the majority of the organizations in financial services to have a clean, timely, accurate security master database. And there are industries that have grown and tried to address this particular area. Like I said, Bloomberg, has a good chunk of it. But there's still areas where, for whatever reason, organizations can't keep up with the pace of data and not only be able to source it and bring it in, but turn that data into information, right? A consistent kind of meta layer that sits on top of that, me as a user can go in and get the information that I need. I don't need to go through 10 different organizations for me to pull out the information that I need, right?
For our listeners, like how did you become so successful, my friend? Like what 3 things allowed you to be so successful from where you started to where you are today as an executive technology, officer? Like what's your secret sauce here?
Well, I think one of the things that I bring to the table, which I see a little different in kind of some of the kind of workforce that's out there today, is when I came into the business, you needed to understand the business, right? If you didn't understand the business and you couldn't sit across the table from your business partner and speak their language, not your language, but their language, so that they can understand what you're doing and how you're helping them and what sort of enhancement you're going to deliver to their day-to-day functions and capabilities that they need to deliver. I really kind of understood the business alongside what they did. I spent a lot of years in many different firms, not sitting on the technology floor, but actually sitting on the trading floor. One of the firms that I worked with, I had to work hard to do it, but I was able to get my development team, sitting right next to the trading desk that they supported. And so, what that does, again, life changes via the lens that you look through, right? And once, at that time it was a sell side firm and there was a core number of developers that I had on the team. Once they experienced, the fanatic nature of a trading floor and what the traders had to do, and, I could sit 3 floors down and develop an application that takes 10 keystrokes to get something done. Once they were kind of up on the floor, they realized that, you got to develop that application, but you got to develop it so he's only hitting 1 key, right?
Wow.
Because of the fluidity of the market that they're trading in. And I think they got to understand that and appreciate that, this is a different environment, that they work in versus just a pure, kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of ivory tower sort of environment. Now, the issue is, as you work for bigger firms and firms that have a much bigger global footprint, that sort of experience becomes much harder to do for individuals. And so what happens is it kind of reverts back to kind of the pure technology solution. So, again, I think being able to have that experience early on in my career has kind of helped me kind of, elevate to the level where I am today.
So it's really all about understanding the business, which is a radical change from where you began to now, because it sounds like people could just jump into the technology mode currently today without having that history of the business. Culture sounds like it played a big part. I mean, I've been friends with you for many years. I mean, your personality is very adaptable to change, right? I mean, to be in the financial services field for so long and surviving, as you would say, I mean, That's phenomenal. And keeping on top of all the technology is also. Is there a question? Because I know you've been interviewed a lot in your career. Is there a question that you just wish someone would have asked you and they never did?
Yeah, I think, that's another great question. So you're keeping me on my toes here.
I'll buy you a beer next week.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think, people ask about, the experiences and some of the things that I've seen, but, one of the things that I think is a key question, and it's away from kind of the technology and the digital transformation component of it, right? So we talk about digital transformation and kind of the fundamental change that we see organizations around how they operate and deliver value and interact with their stakeholders. And I think all that is great, quote unquote consultant speak, right? We can come in here and we can transform your organization to whatever level of digital transformation you want to do, right? TBD, right? Because everybody has kind of a different definition of that. I think one of the key questions that no one asks is your organization ready to make that digital transformation, right? Can you do an honest assessment of the culture within your organization to be able to assess the talent that you have, the maturity, the capabilities, and understand, are they ready? The majority of the organizations are not ready to do whole-scale digital transformation, right? There are pockets that can be done over time, but the question really becomes, can you sit down with the senior leadership team of an organization and go down the line and say, are you ready to do this? Do you understand the time and effort and cost associated with it? And the most important question is, can you define the key success criteria around what this journey is going to take us through, right?
Wow, that's impressive. So any parting words? I mean, we could go on for hours, my friend.
Yeah.
So what should our audience, our listeners for Oz Digital Consulting Transformation Matters, what is the number one takeaway from this conversation you want our listeners to know?
I think the number one thing, and I can sum it up in one word, is partnership, right? When we kind of go through this transformation, or any organization goes through this transformation project kind of journey, you can't do it in isolation. You can't have a technology transformation, right? You have to have an organizational transformation. And to have an organizational transformation, you need to have that partnership, right? You need to have, a committee of individuals representing different areas of the business that sit around the table and back to the point and shake their heads up and down and say, yeah, this is what we define as the success criteria for this project. Otherwise, you have no way to measure or quantify if you're successful or not. So I would really kind of sum it up with that. And look, I mean, the reality is, you can't have a whole organization sit around, but, define, the individual areas that you think you can ring fence and successfully deploy and transform, and kind of, take those smaller bites as opposed to trying to kind of boil the ocean.
Wow. And partnership is a critical piece. This is where Oz Digital Consulting plays in with a myriad of vendors and being a true partner, from the executive team to the frontline people, really helping with all their digital needs and their transformation. But to your point, not only are you a great partner where Oz Digital Consulting comes in, we are true partners to all of our clients. So with that, my friend, you have been an absolutely fantastic guest here. Transformation Matters. First round of beers are with me next week in New York City, and we will be having a good time and continuing this conversation. To our listeners, keep on listening to Oz Digital Consulting. Transformation Matters. Thank you, Vinnie.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.